Hartford. So let's bring in this next gentleman who he is a true legend who bowls on the Professional Bowlers Tour, won 40 PBA titles, who uh, who has been on tour since basically since I was a child. So it's pretty cool. We got Norm Duke here on the phone with us. Norm, thanks so much for coming on tonight. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing just fine, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, talk about this past weekend. You were on Fox bowling against the kids again in the Masters, and how did it didn't end up the right way you wanted, but what did you learn from bowling on that tough pair?
Yeah, that whole building was tough all week long. It seemed to be that they weren't as tough, but once you calculated your score, you didn't have much. So it was brutal. And the kids are so good. My gosh, they've just, as in all sports, you have um, a process by which the newer players are better than the older players, and that continues. And boy, they are so good.
Yeah. So Norm, I do have to ask you a question. We didn't hear you after the loss. Are you hanging it up, or are you still going to be bowling, literally periodically back and forth like Pete Weber does, or Walter Ray does a little bit here and there? What is the future for you?
Well, I'm not going to retire, but I may not enter any more tournaments. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't like the word retire. It's kind of it's got too much finality with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I've been out there for 41 years, and it's just getting to me. Honestly, the pressure every single day for 40-something years, it's just gotten old. Where every moment of your day, you shoot 170, miss a check, you shoot 230, you go to the show. So it's just a lot of pressure, and I'm kind of over it, really.
Okay.
I know I'm still good. I'm not great anymore, but that is another problem. Is I don't ever seem to play up to my expectation, and so therefore I'm constantly disappointed in my play.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to do that either. I'm working my tail off. I work harder now than I've ever worked, Chris, and I'm getting less for it, and that's no fun, to be honest. So I don't know what my plans are. I know this: I'm not entered in any of the senior events coming up. I didn't make the playoffs. I would have played that. I am going to bowl the league for the last time. I'll be the manager if they continue to allow it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the foreseeable future, I will be okay if I didn't bowl anymore.
Yeah. Well, I do have to ask you a question because when you won your first title in 1983, and I was two years old, and I don't think I knew what bowling was until my mom put me in front of the television as a babysitter on Saturday afternoon. That's what my mother said to me one day. But and then you won your second one in 1991. How did you keep yourself positive, knowing that you're almost there, and it's been 8 years, between titles, and you're like, this got to get one, and you finally got one in Ohio. So I guess you're moving to Ohio on your retirement, right?
But back in the day, I sure had a liking to Ohio because I played better there. But you know what? That was so long ago. I ended up getting very fortunate to win my first title at such a young age. Even bowling against Mark and Earl. I know Mark finished sixth and Earl finished fifth. But I had to build something that would stand the test of time. I had to build something that could win tournaments and not just play good in events. And I recognized it, and it took that long to build, believe it or not. And then here was another thing. I built versatility. So no matter what I was doing, I was playing against the very best at doing that. So on Straighty week, I'm doing okay, but I've got to beat the best Straighty players in the history of mankind. And it was very hard for me to compete with them when half of my life was thrown in a different way. And all of a sudden I decide to go straight, and I have to compete with those brutally good straight ball players. I mean, talking about Kent Wagner and Roger Bowker and Soper, Durbin, Slagle, Skidmore. They were just awesome. Well, I had the same problem when I started looking at it. Now I'm bowling against Bob Hanley and Mark Roth, Marshall. And it was very hard to win. In fact, it was confusing to me. I said, what I've built here so far is the ability to play good every week, not great any week. But I stayed with it, and I just said, look, I'd rather have a chance to win every week, even though I'm playing against the very best at what that week has to offer. Get better, though. Just keep getting better. And I did.
Right.
And before long, I started winning a bunches of titles.
Yeah, like 1994 was your best year. You were in the winning circle every time I watched you on television. Like, oh, Norm won again. Here we go. You finally got it going. It was rolling, and ever since then, it's seemed like you've been trying to reinvent yourself with all these different young kids, because now you got the two-handed bowlers like Jason Belanti and who you bowled against on Sunday.
Kyle Troop.
Kyle Troop. And it's funny, you bowled against Guppy when he was bowling on tour. So it's pretty funny you're bowling against his son now. So it's like weird. You're like, where's Guppy? Is he coming out?
To bowl?
Yeah. His son Kyle's there. You're waiting for Guppy to show up again. Because you bowled against him in the '80s. It's like, really. It's like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Guppy was one of those really good straight ball players as well. And ironically, his son has got one of the most powerful balls on tour now. You just wouldn't see that coming, would you?
No, I don't see that coming. But hey, Kyle's a friend of ours on the show, and I feel he did great last year, and hopefully this year he's struggling a little bit, but he'll turn it around. He'll get there.
Yeah, it's impossible not to just fall in love with Kyle. He is just such a great human being. I love him.
Yeah. Well, let me bring in this gentleman. He's a friend of mine, Adam Amaze, who does a lot of stuff. He goes up to Portland for the PBA league, and he enjoyed watching. He met you once, so he's on there. He's helping us out on the broadcast. So let me bring him in. Adam?
Yeah,
go right ahead.
Norm, I'll see you in Portland, Maine in about 13 weeks for the PBA League. So for the first time since 2019, the PBA League will be in Portland, Maine again. So tell us what it's like to see when you get back to Maine, tell us what the atmosphere is going to be like at Bayside Bowl. All the wild and crazy fans that'll be there. I know you're ready for it just as much as me.
Oh yeah, I mean that is the funnest week in our life, to tell you the truth, because of the fans, and they just never cease to amaze us, and they bring things to the table that we didn't see, not at all. And like they're chanting of nicknames, and they just come up with them right there on the spot, and they'll start chanting like I remember Low Shedder one time that started chanting UPS, and 3 or 4 of us looked at each other and we went, well, what does that mean? And somebody said, oh, he wore all brown yesterday. So it's things like that just tickle us. When they started calling Vodka Frosty because he put a little color in his hair that one day, it was just cute as ever. And so they're not only into the bowling like no tomorrow, but they're also in tune with one another. And somebody will start a chant, boy, it's on. I mean, the whole place just gets on it immediately. There's no confusion in their noise. You know what they're saying, you know who they're rooting on, and it is a blast, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and it's funny to hear all these, like you said, these different chants and cheers and all that stuff. And have you ever heard the weirdest one besides UPS? Have you heard anything that's actually, this is a family program, and I know you might hear some other languages and you're like, you don't want to repeat it, but did you hear anything that's pretty funny up there in Portland? You're like, where did they come up with that one? Where did that one come from?
Right, that's the unique thing, is sometimes we have to ask, what are they saying? And somebody will know, one of the players will know, and they'll even know from where it came. And at that point, it gets your tickle bone. And I don't remember all of them. I know that UPS and Frosty always stuck in my mind. I got tickled both times.
Yeah. But
they get to know us because we are their partners in the Pro-Ams as well. So a guy like Andrew Anderson, he's got a major title. I think he's got 1 or 2 titles. I don't know how many, but he walks into Portland, Maine now, and he is somebody. I mean, because he spent some time with them there. And I'll tell you what, that group Here. And, I hear a lot, Chris, about, some people that say that it's just not the bowling that we're used to. Well, no, maybe it's not, but it's certainly the environment we want as players. It is phenomenal.
That's true. Hey, Steve, you got a question for Norm?
Yes, Norm, it's good to hear from you. I've watched you just as long as Chris has. Being a bowler, I know what it's like to contemplate walking away from the sport. I was a bowler for 28 years and haven't been on an organized league, and now this is my 7th year, but I still practice from time to time. But I did have the privilege of bowling with you in a pro-am about 15 years ago at Forest Hill Lanes. You were one of the players that bowled with us in pro-am, and it was a pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you.
So, what did you learn from bowling with Norm in one of those programs? Did you get in? Did you bowl pretty well in those programs, or did Norm show you how to,
I think he showed me up in most of them, but there are a couple of them I got one-ups on him a couple times.
It was all for fun. That's cool. Hey, Norm, before I let George ask a question, when you guys were up there in Forest Hill, Maryland, with Tim Chris and Danny Wiseman and all that stuff, it was pretty cool to have Walter Ray was there, and I was bowling in the pro-am, and I threw one right down this. I do the straight ball, and it was so loud for the strike. Walter comes up to me and goes, "That was the loudest strike I ever heard. Is that Mark Roth?" I'm like, "No, it's just me." He's like, "How did you bring that ball through?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just used to. I guess I have a good upper body strength or something. I don't know." But it was great. And I was like, "Wow, I made a noise like Mark Roth." And speaking of Mark, who passed away, you had a chance to bowl against him, and it's sad that he passed away. But he brought bowling into a new hemisphere. Before that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Mark not only set trends, but every youngster in the world wanted to do what Mark Roth is doing. The same as the youngsters want to do what Jason Belmonte's doing now. And Mark was the first power player, at least the first power player that had the level of success, that we desire. There were a lot of power players probably before him, but not that did as well. That's true. He shaped our sport. I think that a lot of the things that we're dealing with today are a byproduct of Mark, because we like to see the ball hook, and our governing body likes it when people get a hook. So that's what we got. We have an environment now with tons of oil on the lanes, so the bowling ball seems to always get down the lane, and they have lane machines that just oil them perfectly every single lane. So the power game's not going away, but Mark sure did introduce us all to it.
Exactly. Well, real quick, George has a question, and we're going to wrap it up. George is going to wrap it up with you. George, go ahead.
So, Norm, I got to say, I as well, growing up in the 90s in the sport of bowling, I was on the I did the amateur circuit for a little bit, and I saw that you had a win up in Windsor Locks, which was right up at the top of the state there, just north of Hartford. So 2 questions is, what was it like having a plane fly in while you're trying to bowl? And 2, if you could talk really quick about your trick shots and specifically the towel shot.
Question is, what's it like with the planes going above you?
Yeah, so when you were inside Bradley Bowl up there in Windsor Locks, you're trying to be on the lanes. What was it like hearing a plane fly over as you're on the approach?
The airport is right on the other, just right across the street. And so the planes come right over the forward center, and they're close. And in reality, it would affect the lanes and the way they play over time, because it would shake the ceiling, and little bitty particles of fiberglass would fall down on the lanes. Right now, I'm giving you all this info because it is what was explained to me by Lenny Nicholson and Lon Marshall and some of the great players. Because you throw your ball down the lane, and then it would come back, and it'd have these little lines all the way through the track, just barbecuing your track. And you're thinking, well, what is this? Well, that's what it was. It was fiberglass on the lanes, is what they told me.
Wow.
And oh my gosh, did they hook? The lanes just hooked immediately. And of course, we had a tenth of the oil then on a lane than we have now.
Yeah.
And so it was a difficult place to bowl because you had so much friction on the laydown area. And then, for the most part, the lefties really loved that place because there was just so much scarring going on the right side of the lane that we had trouble. We struggled in that place. But I did have one good year where I won, and I know I beat Pete. It's always great to beat Pete.
1997.
Yeah.
Pete and I are lifelong friends. I mean, he's so dear to me, it's crazy, and I am. But don't think we don't like playing one another.
Exactly. Well, real quick, Norm, about the trick shots. He asked you about your trick shots. What do you want George to talk about? His trick shots. Just how do you come about?
The towel shot.
Yeah, I learned a long time ago when the scoring pace started getting big. I said, well, these people are going to average more than me in a year. They're going to average 10, 12, 15, 20 pins more than me, and I'm the pro. I've got to do something that will stand out. If I'm going to entertain the people, if I'm going to be a desirable entertainer, I have to have something that no one else can do. And that's where I just said, we have a lot of free time on our hands. Let's figure out how to do some trick shots. And we would think long and hard about trick shots, to tell you the truth. But most of them never come to fruition. But, man, we had, Voss and I, and sometimes Chooks, we had some fun at that. We would get down there and say, all right, off the stone guy, through the upright, nothing but net. Well, the towel shot actually was shown to me by James Askins, who is a pro shop operator in the Dallas-Fort Worth area as we speak. A little older than me, but he said one day after I had won all the money in the place, it was Meadowbrook Lanes in Fort Worth. He said, well, I'll bowl out of a towel and you can bowl regular. And I told him, man, I don't want to bowl anymore. I'm tired. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, I'll pick out a target score. And I thought, all right, now he's got me. So he chose the target score, and I put about 20 pins extra on it. And, he hemmed, and he went after, I think, about 170. Wow. And then he started toying. And I know when a guy's toying around with me, he's toying to keep the number down. And he barely got to 170, but he did. And, I paid him off, and we doubled a bet. We went at 195. And, dang, if he didn't do the same thing, I have a towel now. Think about it. And then the third time, now we're betting $400. So we double, and he's bowling at 205. Mm-hmm. And he started with the front 5 strikes. And I said, all right, this I've got to learn how to do, because it was the best $800 I'd ever spent at the time. Because I got a lot more out of it than $800 for
That's
sure.
Good. That's cool. Well, Norm, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Enjoy the rest of your spring, and hopefully we'll see you up at the PBA playoffs. And now you won't be in the playoffs, but you'll be up in Portland, Maine with the kids, and have some fun. And we'll talk soon. And thanks for being a guest on our program.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for covering bowling. Your listeners want to know.
Yeah. Thanks, Norm. Have a great night.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay,
Norm.
thank you.
I see you.
Yeah, that was a little bit longer.
Yeah.
We're like 15 minutes behind schedule.
Yeah, we're 15 minutes behind schedule there.